Hey everybody, welcome to day 45 of the 60-day novel writing challenge, which means we are officially halfway through the writing portion, which is amazing. So today we're going to be talking all about how to stay motivated as we go into this second half. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and click it now, and whatever it is you're drinking today, grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. Alright, so today we are talking all about how to stay motivated with our writing, especially as we go into the second half of the writing portion of this challenge. And I will give you a couple of tips and tricks that I use to help me sit down and get my writing done every single day. But the real key to staying motivated and getting a book done and not begging out on it is that you have to believe in it in a way that is deeper than just the enjoyment that you get from writing. Because writing is fun, but if that is the only reason that you're writing a book is just because you think it's something fun to do, that means that on the days that are hard, you're gonna beg out. And so you have to have a deeper belief in what you're doing than just that it's a good time or a good distraction. So the big question that we need to ask ourselves is, why do we write? So that on the days when it gets hard, when you really just have to sit yourself down at the computer and hammer the words out and it's really not that fun, why are you doing it? And what I want to tell you guys is something that I don't think we hear enough in our lives, and that is that fiction is important. Fiction and storytelling in general establishes a sense of empathy that we really couldn't get anywhere else, because we get to live 1,000 different lives in the form of books. You know that saying of try to walk a mile in someone else's shoes? We do that all the time when we read stories, fictional or non-fictional, just storytelling in general. Books can inspire us to be braver in our day-to-day lives. They can show us how to be kinder. They can make us generally better people, and fiction and storytelling is important. So in order to keep yourself motivated to keep writing this book and hammer it out on the days when it is not that fun, ask yourself why the story matters. Is there a moral to your story that you think is so important for your readers to learn? And that could be like, hey, nudge, nudge, kids, pay attention to what your government's doing. Or is the moral that the people who don't necessarily look like you might not be so different from you after all, which shout out to my new kids book that's coming out, which that is definitely the moral of the book. Or does the book teach them skills that might enrich their lives? Specifically, I'm thinking of like when I was reading The Hatchet and My Side of the Mountain when I was little and Clan of the Cave Bear. Those books had so much survival information in them, and I drank it all up. And I tell you what, if I was stranded in the wilderness, I think I could actually make it because I read those books as a kid and I just picked up every bit of information and still remember it. Or does it possibly teach them skills for coping with depression? Or maybe it teaches them how to spot an abusive relationship and leave it. So your books could have a strong moral that you think your readers should come away with. It could give them skills that are going to enrich their lives. Another thing that it can do is teach them about history or about events going on now that they have never heard of or have no reference for understanding. So this could be like the Tortilla Curtain, giving insight into the life of Mexican immigrants. Or it could be like The Carpet Weaver, which is written by the first man who came out as gay in Afghanistan, who then writes about that scenario through the lens of fiction so that we can see what that life is like. Or there's this book that I still remember from school called The Devil's Arithmetic, which gave us an inside look at the life of a girl who lived through the Holocaust and really was able to put into perspective for kids the horror that ensued there that they didn't know anything about. So before I move on and give you all of these tips and tricks for getting your writing done each day, just ask yourself why it is that you write and why is your book important? Because if you can't answer that question, it's going to be really hard to make it through those tough days when you don't want to keep writing. Now, the tips themselves when it comes to just getting yourself into the chair and getting the words onto the paper or the laptop or whatever you're using is, first of all, to set a schedule so that you have a scheduled time every single day to sit down and do it. No excuses. You are going to sit down and do your writing. And the other thing is to do it early, because it's really difficult if you have an hour or two in your schedule in the evening. It is just so much easier, I don't know why, but so much easier to make excuses at the end of the day than at the beginning of the day. So have your schedule, set your time to be early in the day. Probably the most important thing of all is just to eliminate distractions. And I mean truly eliminate them. Like, phone needs to be on the other side of the house where you cannot get to it. Internet should be shut off. You should not be researching, you shouldn't be working on other things. And goodness knows you need to be able to avoid the distracting pull of Facebook. You shouldn't even be able to get on Facebook. Turn the internet off. Leave your phone somewhere else, eliminate anything that could possibly distract you. And I highly recommend using writing sprints every time that you sit down to write, because A, it is the most efficient way to get the words onto the paper, and then B, because if you're not being extremely efficient with your words during the time that you have scheduled for yourself, it is a really slippery slope to not sticking with that schedule. So what I mean is that if you spend half of your time staring out the window and not writing, it's really easy the next day when you don't want to get up early and work on it to say, oh, well, I barely did anything yesterday at all. Like, I stared out the window half the time, so what's the point in getting up today? I'll just skip today. Easy, slippery slope. So keep yourself focused, keep yourself efficient. Using writing sprints, just having a timer going so that you know you have to hit a certain amount of words every certain amount of minutes, is a really good way to keep yourself in the right zone. And we have talked about this one before, but you want to create a sense of responsibility so that you feel obligated to get this book done. And that could be sharing the chapters with people who are interested, who you know are going to be bugging you for the next one. This would be like, so for me with these videos, I have a sense of responsibility that I cannot go to day 56 of the 60-day novel writing challenge and not release a video. I just don't actually think I could ever show my face again if I did all this advertising and all this hard work for the 60-day novel writing challenge and ended at day 56. It would be horrible. So giving yourself that accountability matters too. And lastly is just one cool little tip that you might think to try, and that is to offer yourself a reward that you cannot have at any other time other than either maybe while you're doing your writing or after the writing is done. So I'll share a real life example of a time that I did this not writing related. I trained to do a full marathon once, which is 26.2 miles. And I am not a runner. Let me tell you guys that. I do not run, but bucket list, I wanted to do it. And so what I used was music as my reward. I did not allow myself to listen to music at all unless I was running. Not in the car, not while I was walking, not while I was getting warmed up. If I was out on the trail and I was dying and I just had to stop and walk, I had to turn the music off. And let's talk about some serious motivation to get running again when you're just walking in silence. I need music to be able to work out. And so I would keep running because that was the only way that I was able to listen to music. So you could use this as a reward to yourself for your writing. So if you love eggnog, or there is just something that you love in your life, only let yourself have it while you're writing, while you're working with a timer and you know that you're super focused and you're getting your words down, or maybe only have it as a treat after you've hit your word count goal each day. But do not let yourself have it at any other point in the day or in the week at all, because if you do, then it totally ruins the motivation. So those are all my tips for getting yourself to the keyboard every day, sitting down and hitting that word count goal, and really try to ask yourself why it is that your book matters. Why are you writing it? So that when those hard days come, you have the motivation to power through and get it finished. All right, so today is day 45, which means yesterday we should have been at a total of 23,338 words. I wrote 1,518 for a total of 25,645. So I'm gonna jump off and do my word count now. Today we are shooting for a total of 25,005, which is the halfway point. So exciting. So if you guys haven't hit that subscribe button below, go ahead and click it now, and I will see you tomorrow for day 46 of the 60-day novel writing challenge. And the moral he learned as our story now ends, although dragons look different, they do make good friends.